This week, geopolitical risks keep crypto under pressure. The Senate Agriculture Committee prepares for a hearing on legislation to regulate digital commodities. And MoonPay President Keith Grossman discusses a new multi-year partnership with X Games. Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Talia Kaplan. Major cryptocurrencies in the red this week after investors tried to make sense of headlines from the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, a framework of a deal in President Trump's push for Greenland, and the Federal Reserve's first rate decision in 2026. Over the past 7 days, Bitcoin dipped around 0.4%, and Ether slipped by just under 0.8%. Solana's Sol token faced steeper losses, though, around 3.8%. Now, Sunday saw the biggest losses for cryptocurrencies as investors assessed lingering geopolitical risks, but digital assets did stage a comeback between Monday and today. Some other markets news we're following. Sol is dropping today just as WisdomTree announced it is expanding its tokenization ecosystem to Solana. Meanwhile, 21 Shares launched a spot crypto ETF tied to Dogecoin last Thursday. The fund started trading on the Nasdaq and is the latest spot crypto ETF tied to altcoins to hit U.S. markets. It's not the first spot Dogecoin ETF in the U.S., though. In November, Grayscale converted its Dogecoin trust into an ETF on NYSE Arca. Also on Thursday, Bitwise launched an actively managed ETF pairing Bitcoin and gold as the commodity has been shattering records. Also, shares of BitGo are down more than 3% since launching last Thursday. CEO Mike Belshi joined CNBC's The Exchange on IPO Day to discuss the debut.
We've grown tremendously over the last 13 years. We have, I think, the largest collection of institutional clients in the world. And then we start with a highly regulated, highly protected security layer around everything that we do. And then we build trading, we build staking, we build a number of services on top of that for our clients to use.
Okay, let's talk about the biggest stories of the week. Markup of the Senate Agriculture Committee's legislation to regulate digital commodities is set to take place tomorrow. The hearing was initially scheduled for yesterday, but was moved after that major snowstorm that swept across the U.S. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand told us in an exclusive interview last week that she is very optimistic the Ag Committee's updated legislation will advance, even though a deal with Democrats hasn't been reached. Now, the text builds on a previously released bipartisan discussion draft that would give the CFTC new authority to regulate digital assets. Now, in a statement, Senator Boozman acknowledged that differences remain on fundamental policy issues. You're not a member of this committee, but have been involved in bipartisan discussions working on crypto market structure legislation. And so I'm wondering what you think about this text, and do you think the bill stands a chance of advancing, given a deal with Democrats couldn't be reached?
I do. I'm actually very optimistic. Senators have been working on a bipartisan basis for the last 6 months pretty intensely. And we have two different bills. There's one in the Ag Committee, which has oversight and accountability over the CFTC. And the second piece of legislation is at the Banking Committee, which has oversight over the SEC and banking issues. And so because these types of digital assets have some characteristics of both commodities and securities, you need regulation under both those committees. So we have two different bills that are being written and worked on simultaneously that address different parts of this market structure. And I think both senators on the Banking and Ag Committee are working in a bipartisan way and in good faith.
Now, the Senate Banking Committee postponed a January 15th markup of its own bill to regulate digital assets after opposition from industry giants like Coinbase. In a blog post out this week, Bitwise Chief Investment Officer Matt Hogan noted that odds for the Clarity Act to advance dropped from 80% to 50% following industry pushback. Also tomorrow, SEC Chair Paul Atkins and CFTC Chair Michael Selig will hold a joint event focused on how they can regulate crypto together. The two agencies are pushing to make good on President Trump's promise that he'd make the United States the crypto capital of the world. In a joint statement, the two chairmen said that the event will help ensure that innovation takes root on American soil, under American law, and in service of American investors, consumers, and economic leadership. Sticking with the SEC, on Friday, the agency agreed to dismiss a lawsuit against Gemini's defunct Earn product. According to this court filing, the SEC and the crypto company came to this joint agreement after Gemini paid back its investors in full through the crypto exchange's bankruptcy process. A federal judge still needs to sign off on the agreement. Next, pardoned Binance founder Changpeng Zhao said there's, quote, no business relationships whatsoever between him and the Trump family. In an interview at the World Economic Forum's annual meeting in Davos last week, CZ said his business relationship with President Donald Trump's family has been misconstrued in the wake of his pardon. Trump's pardon back in October drew scrutiny of a $2 billion investment into Binance using USD1. That's the stablecoin issued by the Trump family's crypto business, World Liberty Financial.
There's a lot of media saying that there's some deal in place to get me the pardon. As far as I know, that does not exist at all. Number two is there were quite a lot of inaccurate descriptions about MGX investing in Binance.
Right.
They invested $2 billion equivalent in stablecoins, and they choose the World Liberty Finance USD1 stablecoin. And we are a crypto exchange. When I do business with people, I tell people, look, you can pay me almost in any kind of major crypto that have good liquidity that we can convert. So if it's a stable coin with good banking support,
right.
It's a legit stable coin, I will accept it. MGX is the investor. They choose to use USD1. Said,
right.
Like, my request to them was they pay us in crypto. I don't want to deal with banks, really. Right. So they said, well, can we pay you in stable coins? I was fine. And then they said USD1, fine. So that was the whole process. Many people misconstrue that that's just one transaction which I take. I don't have to hold that $2 billion. I can convert it at any time, and I have.
You have?
I have.
So it was converted almost immediately?
No, we convert portions over time. And then, but many media says that's a $2 billion investment into USD1 or World Liberty Finance. That's completely wrong.
A World Liberty spokesperson told CNBC the company is, quote, not a political organization and had zero role in the pardon process. Zhao enabled money laundering in his role at Binance and served 4 months in prison. And last, Fireblock says it successfully disrupted a recruiting impersonation scam involving crypto. The company, which helps businesses build on the blockchain, says it uncovered the scam where North Korea-linked hackers use fake job interviews to compromise developers and gain access to crypto infrastructure. The company says the hackers were able to closely resemble a legitimate Fireblock's hiring process. They impersonate recruiters, conduct Google Meet interviews, and share take-home assignments via GitHub. When candidates run a routine installation, malware that exposes wallets, keys, and production systems is actually installed instead.
We actually were able to identify almost a dozen of those fake profiles that were operating and continuously changing brands of companies. We were able to basically interact with the hackers and basically collect what we call it indication of compromise, but essentially kind of like the fingerprints, right, of the tools and the weaponry and the malware that they were using in that campaign. And by exposing them and working with LinkedIn and law enforcement, we were able to take down both those profiles and also provide the community the information for them to at least protect themselves against this phase of the campaign.
Now, last year, crypto exchange Bybit fell victim to the largest crypto heist in history. Analysts at blockchain analysis firm Elliptic linked the attack to North Korea's Lazarus Group, a state-sponsored hacking collective notorious for siphoning billions of dollars from the crypto industry. All right, for our main story, this week X Games, known for its high-action sports like skiing, snowboarding, and skateboarding, announced a multi-year deal to make MoonPay the league's title sponsor. The partnership also includes major changes to the X Games, like introducing year-round team-based global leagues, and one athlete already received his prize money in crypto. I spoke with Keith Grossman, president of MoonPay, all about the new deal. MoonPay and X Games are teaming up in an effort to redefine the future of action sports. The 3-year partnership names MoonPay as the title partner of the newly formed MoonPay X Games League, and this marks the first league title partnership in X Games history. How did this deal come about and why now?
Look, like the deal was presented to me, I would say like 5-6 months ago. And when it was first presented, you look at it and you go, for someone like me, I grew up with the X Games, right? And you're like, I love it. But then when you start to understand what their goal and their ambition is, like what under Jeremy Bloom is, to build it out to a league, to build out the support structure for the athletes, to see where, they could take it for, a year-long sort of exposure. It made total sense. And from a demographic perspective, it aligns beautifully.
So why was it important for MoonPay to get involved in a partnership like this, specifically with X Games? And how is this deal different from what people would call a more conventional sports sponsorship?
Sure. So I'll start with the second part first, right? I spent 20 plus years in media, right? I, ran Time, I ran Bloomberg Media, I ran, Wired, and Ars Technica. So when I look at these deals, I have to think about, what is the value proposition of what we ultimately want to get out of it. For the X Games to rename their league, right, the MoonPay X Games, right off the bat, signifies that it's not just a simple straight up partnership. But the most important thing for us was our ability to bring our partners into this ecosystem, right? So a lot of the elements of this partnership allow for pass through, right? So what we're able to do is when we bring partners into the MoonPay ecosystem in the network, we're able to structure it so that way they can also get exposure at the X Games. Because this is such an incredible demographic for crypto, like we wanted to be able to bring the entire industry along with us.
And what does this development mean for X Games? What will change going forward?
Well, what's funny about the X Games, when I grew up and I was watching Tony Hawk or Shaun White or any of these folks, right? Like Bob Burnquist, like all of these individuals, for the most part, they did it for the love of the actual sport, right? Like this was a passion. The X Games came about as a counterculture movement, right? Like how could they come out and do these extreme sports? Most of them did not make money. Most of them did it for passion, right? And so the structure that Jeremy and team are putting into place allows them to ultimately, set in place a foundation for athletes to, make a living, to have a foundation to support their travel, and then ultimately to go year round.
I understand MoonPay will allow select partners to engage with the league ecosystem through integrated experiences and a move aimed at bringing the broader crypto industry into X Games through a single framework. Can you take us through how this will all work and how will this help shape the future of action sports?
Sure. So, I've been at MoonPay now for 3 years, and over the past 3 years, like we've looked at a very sophisticated go-to-market strategy and approach. When we approach our partners, we look at it through the lens of MoonPay plus OnRamper, the aggregator that we partner with and have, majority stake in. And then ultimately, we bring partners who, join us into Other Life, our agency of record, right, that we own, which is an award-winning agency that works with MasterCard and the likes. The final leg of that is how do we give our partners distribution, right? Like our goal is ultimately to be a one-stop shop for anyone in crypto to be able to build sort of their product, and then we could give them the entire support structure. What it will ultimately do is it will ultimately give all of these crypto companies that normally would never have access into a community that is perfect for them, access into this community.
Now, you touched on this, but what comes along with this new partnership with X Games? What are some of the benefits that people can expect?
Well, for our partners, it will be inclusion, right? Like they'll all of a sudden have access into an unbelievable community. For us, like X Games takes MoonPay and it ultimately allows us to start to move outside of what I would say is the niche crypto ecosystem and into more of a mainstream ecosystem. It aligns beautifully with a community that already loves and engages with crypto. And then for the fans, like what we'll be able to do is provide new experiences, new touch points that they probably never had before. And for the athletes, we'll be able to start to think about how can we reward them differently? How can we give them benefits that they normally wouldn't get? I mean, maybe you saw over the weekend in Aspen, when Mark McMorris won gold, we were able to sort of match his prize money with crypto. It was a great sort of moment. And like, this is the type of things that we want to bring to the X Games for all the athletes.
So where will the league's teams be based for now? Are we talking about a global footprint or will this be domestic? And when can we expect to see competitions kick off?
Sure. So right now, what they're going to do is they're going to do a draft in LA on March 12th, right? And then all of a sudden, they're going to kick off in Sacramento on June 26th. They have 180 people 180 athletes that have already signed up for the draft. And what we know right now from them is that the teams will be based in New York, LA, Sao Paulo, and Tokyo. So it's going to be a totally global experience.
Now, broadly speaking, does this deal signify potentially a deeper cultural alignment between crypto and action sports? What do you think about the new synergy between the two industries?
I actually don't think it's a new synergy at all. Like, I think that it's a synergy that it was born from the moment both of them came about, right? Like, if you think about action sports, this was a counterculture movement to the NFL. It was a counterculture movement to the professional athlete sort of leagues that the networks had always had, the monopolies over. And when you think about crypto, it's a counterculture movement to the financial industry, right? Like, it's a movement that starts to show, how is the world moving in a different direction? How is it evolving? How is it thinking differently? And I think it's absolutely ripe for the two to be married together.
That makes sense. What else can we expect from MoonPay in 2026? Are there any more big partnerships in the works that you're able to discuss at this point?
I mean, Talia, this one exhausted me. How much bigger can we go on this one? We have a titled sponsorship of the X Games. But what I will say is
a big one.
It's been exciting for us, right? Like, we've announced quite a few partnerships over the past year and a half or so. Like, we have a great partnership with the Shots Podcast Network. We have great partnership with Fortune. We have great partnership with CNBC. We have great partnership with Pompliano. But like, when it comes to the X Games, right? Like, the X Games takes us to a completely different level, because all of a sudden we're talking about a partnership that transcends any one platform in particular, right? And for me, coming from a media background, I look at this as a platform for distribution, and we're going to have incredible distribution to be able to tell the story.
Okay, that's all for Crypto World this week. We'll be back again next Wednesday, February 4th, and we'll see you then.